Hey everybody, I'm live again Thursday afternoon, 4:15. Today, hope everyone's doing great. It's the first week of March, spring's in the air. I see a bunch of flowers outside. I saw the hummingbirds. I know that all of my friends up in Canada probably aren't getting the same experience, but down here it's lovely. I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes here for everybody to get on. Tell you a little bit about what's going on here in March. Wrapped up my anger series there in February, and I really wanted to go on to the next topic that I find that a lot of people are dealing with, especially men, is this whole idea around burnout. And it does happen. It happens to all of us. It happens usually at around the age of 40 as well. Anywhere from that 35 to 45 is usually when you acutely feel burnout. And it's different kind of than what you've experienced before in the past. Just want to say hi to everyone who's watching. If you're here live, drop a live. Say hi down below. I want to make these as interactive as I can. I said the more people that are on, the more people who have questions, who want me to dive into certain things, drop some suggestions below. Again, let me know if you're listening live. Just pop in a hi or I'm watching live or where you're watching from. That's always a good one too. I'd love to see who's tuning in to these series. So for the month of March, I really want to focus on burnout. So today's talk is going to be about burnout, and I'm going to give you the 3 reasons, kind of why you're in it, and one quick and effective thing to do this week that'll help you on your path out of it. And then for the subsequent weeks in March, I'm going to dive deeper on the individual topics and give you some more action plans and some more action items. See if you can't help yourself. And if not, I'm going to direct you to some places where you can get some help as well, additional help, additional support. All right. Well, without further ado, I want to start with kind of a scenario. It's Monday morning. Your alarm goes off, whatever time it is. Maybe it's 6:30, maybe it's 7, maybe it's 5:30. What's the first thought that goes in your head when you wake up in the morning? Type it down in the comments below. Right? What is it that you think? I know I did a poll on a bunch of guys on a bunch of guys groups, and I think the number one answer was fuck. Right? That's the thought going through so many people's heads on Friday morning, right? Or Monday morning, it's just, oh my God, the beginning of another week. I'm so tired of doing this. I don't want to get up. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to get the kids ready. I don't want to do this. Let me know if that actually resonates with you below. So if that line hits home, drop a hell yeah below, because I think we've all felt that way. What is in yours? What does it mean to you when you wake up Monday morning? Are you one of the lucky few who jumps out of bed and goes, fantastic, can't wait to get into my day? Or are you one of the others who are just like, God, please no, not another week, or one more week until retirement, right? And you have the weeks marked off on your calendar. What is burnout exactly? So burnout is defined, and this is one of the 3 definitions that are in there, but this is the one that most appropriately sums up how we feel when we're in burnout. It's a physical or mental collapse caused by overwork or stress. Now, the term burnout is actually a medical term now. However, it's only used for work and work-related ailments. No one ever really has touched on, or the professions haven't really focused on how you get burnt out at home. My personal belief is that it's a combination of things. It's not just this mental or physical collapse caused by overwork or stress. It's kind of a combination that I sum up as overworked and underappreciated, right? It's that whole, why am I doing this, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get onto the path of burnout. It starts with being overworked, underappreciated, the stress builds, and then there's your physical and mental collapse. Raise a hand if this actually resonates with you guys. If you guys feel that those of you who are in burnout are actually feeling some of those points that I'm hitting up, right? And there's a few ways it shows up. First, it shows up physically. Like, I think that's one of the first places we see it. It's you feel tired and drained. So, let's just look at some of the symptoms here. Tired and drained. Who has felt that on a consistent basis? And I'm not talking about your normal tired. I'm talking about a constant feeling of exhaustion, a constant feeling of tired. You sleep 8 hours, you don't feel rested. Yes, you may have sleep apnea. Check. Go get that checked out if that's the case. But it could also be a symptom of burnout. Number two, loss of motivation. This is a big one for me. You just stop caring. There's that line in Office Space where Peter gets interviewed by the consultants and they're like, hey, Peter, it looks like you've been missing a lot of work. And he's like, can't say I was missing it, Bob. You just don't care, right? That kind of goes, and then it kind of follows with a sense of failure or a sense of defeat or feeling trapped. Like you can't escape the walls around you. You can't escape the life you've created for yourself, right? Another one that people often feel when they're in burnout is detached or isolated. A sense of loneliness, that no one sees you, no one even knows that you're suffering. And I think that becomes a very serious one as it leads down into thoughts of, say, depression, or in the extreme cases, suicide. I think a lot of people feel that way of, there's no one here to help me. It also shows up in how you show up. You procrastinate. You put off things, just put them off, put them off, put them off. Things start to pile up. It becomes a vicious cycle. And for some people, it's outbursts of anger. My series in February, if you haven't seen it, go back and look at those lives, deals with anger. And anger is just the symptom. Anger and the fits of rage and the outbursts are basically you're exploding, but there's the underlying issue. And this burnout is typically one of those underlying issues. Hey guys, if you're watching, just want to say hi to everyone who's watching. Give me a thumbs up if this stuff is resonating with you. And the last one, this is the one that I think we all kind of go to. It's that instant gratification. And what do I mean by instant gratification? It's all the things that we can do now to get enjoyment and quick pleasure. For some people, it's overeating or eating a lot of treats. For some people, it's alcohol, drugs, porn, work. Some people just dive back into work, right? So instant gratification are those things that scratch that itch now because you don't see the value in long-term planning. But now I'm going to kind of go into the three, into kind of my story and how it showed up for me, right? Actually, I'm going to go back so you guys can read ahead. We'll get to that. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how it showed up for me. And why I feel that in and around that age of 40, burnout is a real presence in a lot of our lives. I turned 40. I had it all. I was married. I had my 2 kids. I had a phenomenal career, wealth, had house. I had, security, and I was surrounded by all my family and friends, but I wasn't happy, right? And I couldn't explain why. The thoughts going through my head were always, I should be happy, I have everything. Why aren't I? I don't like going to work. I don't like taking care of the kids. I don't even like going and hanging out with my friends anymore. Like all of the things I used to love doing were just exhausting for me now. And life just seemed like a grind. And I think that's the best way to sum it up. I felt ground down, right? And through doing that, it led me to making a lot of rash and hasty decisions. And I think this is where people call it a midlife crisis, right? For some people, it's the convertible, Some people go and get the hair plugs so they can look like they're 20 years old. Some guys start chasing 20-year-old women. And guys like me sell everything and move and try to wipe the slate clean and start over. Because in our head, my head at the time was, that's the solution. But really, why was I willing to do that? I could have saved myself a whole lot of pain and and a journey that I needed to take, but I was in a state of burnout. And I realized that as I kept chasing new experiences and new ways of doing things and tried to jettison what I thought were the pain points, I got to the point where I realized that no, it was all me. And that was the moment that I kind of shifted and came into the 3 reasons why I was in burnout and how I was going to get myself out of it. So I'm going to dive into those right now. So burnout's real, but it's also imaginary. And I'm going to explain why. So it's burnout is something of our own creation. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is balance, right? And everyone talks about balance. There's all these quotes, Janet Kingsford says, balance is not something you find, it's something you create. And I believe that 100%. Balance is something that we miss and lack in our lives. And, everybody's searching for that work-life balance. And I'm not even going to go there because I don't think that you can separate work and life, what theoretically you're not even living if you're working. I think that's a very unhealthy way of thinking about things. Like, you need to feel satisfied at work, at home, at play. And the only way I found that you can do this is by making sure that you're taking care of these 4 quadrants of your life and these 4 core areas of your life. And I think a lot of coaches talk about this. This is something that when you look around at all the most successful people, they've established this balance. And sometimes they're going to be heavy on one side, heavy on the other. This is when they start to feel out of sorts and unsatisfied. The first area that really you have to focus on is your mind. This is where it all starts. It all starts in your mind. It all starts with your growth. I believe that burnout starts the minute you start getting comfortable and the minute you stop learning and challenging yourself. And I'm not talking about taking on a new job at work or, a new project. I'm talking about feeling like you're up-leveling, learning something you've never learned before, putting yourself into the position where you are uncomfortable because you have to stretch yourself. And, that's part of the growth, but it's also part of the health of your mind. It's taking rest. It's about, gratitude, taking, being appreciative of what's around you. Just giving your mind time to rest, whether it's meditating or, for some of the, if you're a faith-based person, connecting with your religion. The next segment I think is body. If you're not physically healthy and you're not physically fit, you're never going to have the energy to go and do all the things that you want to do. You're not going to be able to play with your kids. You're not going to be able to go and live an active lifestyle to your, 80, 90, 100 years old. So body is critical. And if you're, indulging in instant gratification, you're seeing the results probably in your physique, in your energy levels, and in those things. So this is another quadrant that really needs to be focused on. The third one is relationships and legacy. This is about the people around you, your community. If your community is your family of 4 or 5, that's your area. How developed are those relationships? Can you say that you're putting into them as much as you want and that you're satisfied with the relationship with your wife or husband, the relationship with your children, your parents, siblings if you have any, your close friends? What about the neighborhood around you? What about your community? And I think a lot of people, we look so internally. I myself, I was guilty of this for years and years and years, about satisfying my needs and my wants kind of like a 5-year-old child and not looking at the bigger picture. What legacy are you leaving? Are you proud looking back at the last 10 years of what you've accomplished? And if you are, why aren't you celebrating that? You see? Why are we going into that whole, but I need more and more and more? And lastly is the money and wealth quadrant, because everybody needs money to live. And I don't think anyone will argue with you on that. Money is necessary in our world, but how much? And is really sacrificing all 3 of these so that you can cap out on wealth, is that really what makes someone happy? And I can tell you from my experience, no. And I know from a lot of people who have hit that money and wealth component, but have left a trail of destruction on their body, on their mind, in their relationships, if they would trade in money for all of these things. One of my mentors once said, would you trade in Warren Buffett's money and give him the rest of the life that you have for his? And almost everybody says no, they would keep the amount of time they have versus having a lot of money. And so really weighing that and how you use your time. Let me know if this one works, because I'm a big fan of this balance and this balance idea of, really working on your 4 areas of your life constantly and daily. Number 2, and I think this right here, so once you're out of balance, I think this is what sneaks in after. Obligation versus intention. And it's in all honesty, it's the have-tos versus the want-tos. I have in your 20s, before you go and you get married and you have kids, if you're not married and having kids in the 20s, you're really only focused on yourself. And I doubt most people feel burnout until they start piling on more and more and more responsibilities. And I think how that shows up is that when you're, at least in my case, when I was in my 20s, I didn't have a lot of obligations. I just had to take care of myself. I could take care of me, I could go to my job, and that was pretty much it. So anytime I felt overworked at work, I would balance it at home. And I would go on a vacation, I would go on a trip, I would de-stress, I would decompress. I had that room to maneuver. As I got married and then subsequently had kids, because I was later in my, had more advanced in my career at the time, I also had more responsibility on the work side, more responsibilities piling up at the home front, and no tools to deal with either one of them, right? And I think that resonates with almost every guy I know as he approaches 40. The obligations start to outweigh the intentions. So we're doing more things in the day that we feel we have to, and less things in the day that we feel we want to. And I think this is the big shift when we get into burnout. When your life is a bunch of have-tos and there is no want-tos in your life, that's the recipe for a disaster, right? And this is what we need to focus on, moving from the have-tos to the want-tos, right? A lot of people always, kind of say, well, what do you mean? Should I quit my job? Maybe. That's a question I always like to answer. Maybe. What is going to be right for you? Do you know your purpose? Do you know what your values are? Do you know why you get up in the morning and go to work? Is it just because you have to? Because you don't? And these are kind of the questions that I pose a lot of times and challenge people a lot to really answer those questions. How can you shift your life from a bunch of have-tos to a lot of want-tos? Now, another thing that obligation does, and this is something I teach quite a bit in my coaching, is playing the victim. Obligation versus intention means that you are obligated, you are a victim to the circumstances around you, that you have no choice. If you remember from one of the symptoms of burnout, failure and fear of being trapped is one of those symptoms. Well, that's because the feeling is that I have no choice. It comes from this sense of obligation. So when you don't feel like you have a choice, you're going to start making very erratic and rash decisions. Whereas when you are coming from a place of intention, of wanting to do something, you're now taking a leadership role. You're not being the leader in your life, in your family, in your work, in the people around, in the community around you. And who would you rather be? The victim or the hero? Right? And I think that's really what it comes down to, is don't be the victim, take control. And this is something you can implement today. This is all in your sphere of influence. And this leads us kind of to the third part, which is that it's all in your head. Burnout is just in your head. And I know it seems like a dark cloud, and I know that it feels omnipresent, that it's always there, that you can't escape it. But the truth of the matter is that it's not. Everything that you've created, you can drastically uncreate, or you can change to suit what you want it to be, right? Starts with that identification, right? How balanced are you? Are you putting up boundaries? Are you being a victim? Are you saying yes to everything? Do you have no time control? Are you investing in yourself at all, right? I think this is something that we do as parents a lot. We sacrifice ourselves for our children, but not understanding that through doing that, we are sacrificing our children. We're showing them the example of how not to be, right? And that is our role as, when we work on our core four areas. If you're building with your relationships and yourself and your body and your wealth, you're going to be balanced, you're going to be leading, and you're going to be happier. Coming from a place of intention is just making a choice to stop doing the things that you don't want to be doing anymore. Saying no sometimes, or reframing it so that if you have to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to a job, well, what is the reason you go to this job? How can you make being at that job better for you? Not for your employers, not for the bottom line, not for this, but better for you. How can you show up and enjoy the time that you're going to spend there? Because there, like I said before, there is no work-life balance. You are living while you're at work. How can you find ways to enjoy being there? And if you can't, then maybe it's time to look for something else, right? And that's why it's that idea that you do have a choice. You are not a victim. You are in control. So this kind of leads me to, wrapping it up today. I wanted to give you guys one action item today, to take with you this week. Try it out. See if it resonates with you. And the action item is this. Before you get all serious and jolt out of burnout, do one thing. One thing that makes you happy. And I like to reference this back to like when we were children. What made you happy as a kid? Was it riding a bike, skateboarding? Well, do one thing this week that makes you happy. Was it, like I said, was it flying a kite? Was it driving to the beach, going to the mountains? Was it going to a movie? What, getting a big bucket of popcorn and just enjoying yourself for 2 hours? Do one thing this week that makes you happy for you, right? And I would also recommend buy yourself. Go put a smile on your face. All right? This is my prescription to you guys this week. Go do something fun. First step out of burnout. Have fun. Okay? So, everything I want you guys really, thanks Sanas for your comment below. I would love to see some other comments. I would love to see some other people's takes on this. Let me know if you're going to do this. Come back next week, next Thursday, 4:15. I'm going to dive into the four quadrants, the core four areas of our life, how we can create more balance. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that. Give you guys some ideas on what you can do for your mind. What can you do for your body? What can you do for your relationships? How can you benefit on the wealth side? And fixing those areas so that they become a little bit more holistic and they show up more or show up daily in your life. Drop a comment if you guys, or share this video with somebody you think might like it, might get some benefit out of it. I also tagged below in the comments here the link to my burnout quiz. For those of you who feel like you're in burnout or close to it, take this quiz. Just create some awareness around the problem. That way you can start looking at the solutions. So join me again next week. Drop a like again below if you saw this, or a heart, something to kind of boost this to the group. And I'll see everyone next Thursday. Have a great weekend, y'all.